and gentlemen, on behalf of Arbitration Foundation Southern Africa, known as AFSA, it is my pleasure to welcome you to Johannesburg Arbitration Week 2026.
This gathering reflects the maturity of a broader movement, one that seeks to position Africa as a central and credible player in the global dispute resolution landscape. Over the next few days, we bring together an extraordinary community. This diversity is not incidental. It reflects the very nature of arbitration itself.
I really believe that if we could come, both as an African Union and as a regional body, and create a much more cohesive approach towards conflict resolution, we would be doing better for our people.
The courts in Africa are well placed to deal with sinners and saints.
There is an ecology of dispute resolution, of which the court system is the core, the nucleus, and around that nucleus there is the arbitration process and there is mediation.
Right now, I think in this tumultuous global environment, we must now be focusing on a new kind of conflict. A conflict between North and South. A conflict for the promotion of women who now demand a seat at a table and demand full equity in all operations. A conflict between the youth and politicians.
It is a great privilege to participate in this panel, and I thank you for the opportunity to participate in Johannesburg Arbitration Week. It's very fortunate that the court in which I sat is 8,000 miles away, so you wouldn't know whether I was busy or completely unemployed.
He said business has a right to note that there are legitimate mechanisms in place through which disputes may be resolved effectively, efficiently, speedily, and in the most economical possible way.
Africa is not becoming uninvestable. Africa is just reframing and being more intentional about how the value is getting shared.
We know that, unfortunately, mining industry and the industry itself works on that, can be a place where corruption is particularly present. So the government is looking at all of that and saying, we want a more profitable, a healthier environment. We are going to implement that code.
Reform is in fact happening. African arbitration legislation is being modernized. Institutions are growing in sophistication and capacity. Leading regional bodies are investing in training, capacity building, and practitioner development. African arbitrators are being appointed at the highest levels of international arbitration.
You can't really speak about the development of an African arbitral hub without speaking about the development of practitioners. And you can't speak about the development of practitioners without mentioning advocates for transformation.
For many years, arbitration involving African parties and disputes has been seated outside the continent, often driven by perceptions around neutrality, efficiency, and judicial reliability. While those perceptions were shaped by historical realities, they also present us with a critical opportunity to redefine the narrative and reposition Africa.
Everyone is using AI. Even those who are not using AI now will be using AI.
The role of the AFSA International Court is not to decide cases on the merits. What we do instead is act as a guardian of the rules.
So national legislation is really important because even though we may have global standards, each country has the legislative authority to depart from whatever these global standards are. It's going to be important to check whether there is legislation and what it says about what matters can be referred to arbitration.
Ensuring the enforceability of the award is probably an arbitrator's main responsibility.
This morning's session asks the prior question: what institutional, legal, and industrial architecture does Africa need so that the conditions giving rise to those disputes are addressed before parties ever reach a tribunal?
There's obviously a huge opportunity for Africa that arises from the geopolitical competition over critical minerals. And the question is, how do African countries and Africa at large benefit maximally from that competition?
The critical minerals emergency has created a rush that risks shortcuts to investment decision, to permitting systems.
The African Union Heads of State in 2009 realized that essentially Africa is exporting most of its raw materials, and there's a need for actually to curb Africa from being a primary exporter of the raw materials and to value add, manufacture and benefit from our minerals directly.
Traditionally, the focus is on investors and the dispute that they may have with the states. But when this mining happens, it doesn't happen in the air. It's happening on lands that are inhabited by communities. And as this mining happens, a number of rights are violated. The right to food, the right to life, the right to water, the right to a clean and healthy environment.
I stand here today to celebrate the AFSA rules in French on behalf of FTPA.
On behalf of my colleagues, my Mozambican colleagues, and on behalf of all those who speak Portuguese, I would like to say that we are very grateful to be able to have access to such a wonderful platform, and the fact that these rules have been made available in Portuguese, it marks a great step in the promotion of international dispute resolutions. And in Portuguese, we will say muito, muito obrigado.
I would like to thank AFSA very much for being the engine behind this wonderful project.
Credibility, indeed, is extremely important. In other words, having trust in arbitration as mode of dispute resolution.
The Permanent Court of Arbitration that I'm representing here today thought about exploring avenues with arbitral institutions around the world, but not only around the world, also and specifically for today in Africa.
The stakeholders in arbitral institutions need to start making demands on whether an MOU works or not.
In my opinion, there are some possible goals for signing MOUs, and the most crucial of them, legal education. It's jointly conducting webinars, conferences, and training courses.
Having signed around 15 arbitration agreements over the last couple of years, I've slightly changed or varied my views on them. From my experience, more than half of them are actually quite active, so I think it is worth trying.
Many, especially from the domestic users, still perceive ad hoc proceedings to offer greater control, more flexibility, and lower cost.
We all need to make sure that we conclude really fruitful and effective MOUs.
Our critical rules and other rules provide that when the institution makes the selection, it should take into consideration nationality, but also diversity aspects.
It's very important for us as lawyers and those having a stake in the arbitration and mediation process to take stock of where we are and why we exist and how we can exist better in future. But what we must do is, in between conferences, act on what we've discussed. That's the most important part.
You have made suggestions to AFSA, and I would beseech you to continue that conversation with us. Go safely, Godspeed, and let us meet again soon.
Until next time, have a wonderful rest of your week. Ciao, everyone.